Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where and when you're watching this. I hope wherever and whenever that is, you and yours are safe and secure as best we can be in these troubled times. Okay, this is going to be a little interesting. I haven't done this before, and so taking some risks, and we'll see if we succeed or fail. This is going to be relatively short because I'm mainly just going to be giving you instructions as to what I want you to do. So what I'm trying to do is recapture what we had in the classroom, where you're able to get together with your fellow students and really dig into some primary source documents. And we're going to give that a try in this new virtual way. But looking over the slides, I just love that cartoon starting off the war. Obviously from a British point of view, but nevertheless it's clever, and there's a lot of very subtle points in there if you look at it closely, if you have a moment. Moving on to course administration, just let me know if you have questions about what's going on. I will do my best to answer them, at least as far as this class goes and also as far as the department goes. Let's see. If possible, please submit your marks short paper today. From now on, please submit all papers and all assignments through Blackboard. I think I have it up and running. If I don't, you need to let me know so I can get it fixed. But that way I'm going to be able to give you feedback electronically without having to print and scan. That had initially been my plan when I had access to campus, but now that's no longer the case. I'm having to modify. And then the rest of the papers are noted, due dates are noted on the slide. If you're behind, don't panic. Do your best to catch up when you can. I understand things are not normal right now. I will be returning graded work via PDF for the things you've printed, for the things I already have printed. Keep an eye on the grade book as I get to things. Obviously, the next few days, if you've looked at my previous video, are going to be a little slow on grading. Percocet is not exactly your grading friend, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Do get a hold of me for your video conference or your phone conference, or we can just do it via email for, remember that's 29 points, I believe it is, of your grade, so we need to get those conferences done. And everything else is more or less the same. I've started a separate slide deck of information about the ongoing coronavirus contingency. Anything that's related to that, I'm putting on that deck and revising from time to time. If you have information that's useful, pass it on and I'll post it. Okay, moving on to jobs. Yes, the job market is still there, even if we're not doing much in the way of hiring right now, and the economy seems to be headed for recession or even depression. But nevertheless, history is still a great way to get a job. This one is for a project manager and fundraiser at Eckley Miners Village Associates in lovely Weatherly, Pennsylvania. And I picked this one because it emphasizes that, yes, fundraising is a critical part of almost any historical endeavor. You don't have to be a business guru to recognize that. So consider adding some fundraising tools to your portfolio as a possible help. All right, the writing tip of the day, pretty straightforward one, but I see lots of mistakes on this one. Essentially, every day, which is as one word, every day, is a descriptor for a noun, i.e. an adjective. But every day is two words, means each and every day, or each day. So don't cross them up. A minor point, but nevertheless a good one. Questions. If you still have questions, go back, please, to First World War Part 1 and post them there. That's where I'll be looking for them. I'm going to reserve First World War Part 2 for today's lesson, which I'll get to in a moment. But any questions you have, please post. They don't have to be original questions per se. They could also be questions based on someone else's post. So I'm monitoring all that, and I will do my very best to answer them. Maybe we can get a conversation going. We'll see what happens. Okay, the next 4 slides, if you're looking at them, have a series of links to primary sources and a set of names off to the right. So what I'm asking you to do is to go to our Blackboard discussion forums, and under First World War Part 2, you will see I have started 4 threads. They match up with the slides, they match up with the groups. What I would like each person to do, each of you to do, excuse me, beg your pardon. Yep, still using the El Pueblo glass. I did wash it. I digress. The point here is to go to the discussion forum for the slide that has your name on it and continue that thread. I've started the thread. I want each of you to continue it, interacting with each other, talking about the sources, looking at them, and trying to come up with, just like we do in class, some common conclusions. The difference here is what I want you to do is to collaborate on a PowerPoint slide. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be particularly beautifully formatted. If you want to put a picture on there, feel free, but you don't have to. Don't feel like you should. But collaborate on a slide, and when you guys agree that this represents kind of what you want to put out there, let me know. You can email it to me, and I will insert it into the lesson. And when I have all 4, I'm going to upload it, the new version, and so everybody will then have access to the PowerPoint slide that instead of having just these 4 slides with links and names, after each one will be the slide you created in response. I think that should be a useful way to do things, to recapture some of the interaction that I try to get with these lessons. And then everybody in the class will have the opportunity to look at that. So you can finish watching the video, but when you're done, go to those discussion forums, start looking at those primary sources and see what you can come up with. Obviously, this week's a little disrupted for me, to say the least, but if you could get those slides put together maybe by the weekend, for each of you, each group that is. I'll go ahead and post them then when I'm feeling up to it. And we're going to give this a try. That's all any of us can do in this kind of environment, is do your best to try something new and different and see if it works. And if this is a complete fiasco, I'll come up with something different for next week. And if this works, we'll carry on with it. Seems to be the way to go as far as I'm concerned. All right, so after those 4 slides, I have a couple of useful maps that I think are worth taking a look at there. And then, of course, our conclusions will be based on your slides. Finally, 3 books I recommend, kind of going in reverse order. Hustron's The First World War is an excellent overview. Well worth a look. Well worth a look if you're looking for general information. Paul Halpern's Naval History of World War I is the book on the naval history of World War I, which is a lot bigger than we recognize. If there's one naval action everybody recognizes about World War I, it's the Battle of Jutland, which gets maybe like 3 pages in this massive book that Halpern has printed, because there's just so much more going on. Actually, the first shots of World War I were actually fired by a naval vessel, by an Austro-Hungarian river monitor, i.e. a ship with 1 or 2 big guns on it, firing into Serbia, firing into the capital of Serbia. So worth a read, especially if you have a nautical bent. And this one I read fairly recently, and it really impressed me. Robert Gerwarth's The Vanquished, Why the First World War Failed to End. And it really talks about all of it. When we look at the Western Front, yeah, the war ends. There's an armistice, there's a peace treaty, the Germans aren't happy about it, foreshadowing for next lessons, etc. But in Eastern Europe, with Russia, with the newly formed nations like Poland and Czechoslovakia, with the border disputes in the region, the war doesn't really end for quite a while. The Russian Civil War goes on until 1922, depending, maybe even longer, 24, some authorities will claim. There are going to be Polish-German border disputes. There's going to be fighting in the Baltic states. There's a lot going on, and Gerwarth does an excellent job of explaining why things keep going, why they don't end neatly, with an armistice the way they do in the West, and the consequences of it. So all of them are well worth your time and a good look. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. I will likely be incommunicado for the first, call it the first 3 days of April. If things go really well, I may be back a little sooner than I anticipate, but again, don't panic. I will be in touch with you over the weekend if you have a question or a concern. In the meantime, let's get those discussion threads going and see where this goes. Wherever you are, I wish you the best for you and your family. Please follow all the social distancing guidelines, listen to our medical and public health authorities, and we'll get through this together. All right, talk to you next week.